Hello. I just thought I'd start a little introduction. Um, I do have an introduction in the first week in the class, but it's more about the class, and I thought I'd do a little bit of an introduction about myself and about my expectations for the class. Perhaps a little bit more information that might be of interest. Um, my name is James Oliver, and I have been a librarian for over 30 years, um, closer to 40, working in both academic institutions and in public libraries. I finally retired as a public librarian, as a director of a public library, I should say. And so when it comes to collections, I have a good deal of experience. I've done collections as a collection librarian and a reference librarian and a director of a branch library at an academic institution. And then I went into public libraries, um, finally working as a director of a public library. So I've done collection from the aspect of a person who does collections um, as a person who's given a budget and develops a collection from a budget that's been given. I have written documents to ask for additional funds for particular areas that I think the library needs better copies of. And I've done it from the perspective of a person who supplies the funds for other individuals. So I've got a collection experience all the years I've worked in libraries, both from a person who does the collection to a person who provides the funding for collections. Um, so what I want to do is talk a little bit about course design and the way I follow this class. In that, lectures and readings are not necessarily the same. I've got a book that is to be followed, um, and and there are selected readings for each week from the book. And while I tend to follow the book's content in the lectures, my lectures and the book are not necessarily the same thing. The book talks about the theory. In my lectures, I tend to talk about the practice. So by using the lectures and readings together, I have often heard from students that they find it handy to listen to lectures and then do the reading because the reading is augmented by the lectures. I've heard this before, um, but while I follow the content of the book for the lectures are not necessarily going to encompass anything that's in the books exactly. So I find them both useful. Follow each week's lectures and readings with a discussion board. So I have a discussion board for each week. So after you do the lectures and readings, you can follow the discussion board. I also use, in addition to the book that's required, anything else I provide is provided usually within the discussions. So it's important to follow the discussions each week because I will add information into the discussions. I read the discussions. I read all the discussions. And sometimes a person will say something in a discussion that will strike something in my mind that I will add additional information in the discussion. So in the discussion, I will have links to YouTube videos. I will have, even in the lecture, in the readings and lectures, I'll use YouTube videos, but in the discussions, I'll add information as it pops up. So post an independent discussion. Each person should write a discussion, or respond to a discussion. Um, Preferably, I'd like to see people do independent discussions. If a person refers to a reading that was in the book, for example, it is often handy to not only say that it was from the book, but to actually post a page within the book or a section chapter within the chapter, so that as I read these articles, it is often handy for me to look at my textbook and say that it's from this section in the book. So not only say it's from the book, but say where it is in the book, page number, chapter, section, some independent information, some information that tells me where it is in the book, so that it is easy for me to re-look it up again and for others to look it up again. So post independent responses to discussion, respond to others. Use polite language. Do not use any inflammatory responses. Remember to respond to the statement that the person makes. But do post discussions. I read these discussions. The more independent discussions is basically relevant for a B grade on the participation. To receive something more than a B grade, you have to respond to others to do another. If you post a discussion, it's enough for a B grade, but you must also respond to other people as well. I use the discussions and the analytics that are in the page to develop a participation grade. So it is easy to get a good participation grade. Just simply post on the discussions. That's the main thing for a participation grade, is to participate in discussions. Now, in addition to this slide, I should say, is there are assignments that are written, or you can use PowerPoint with video in many cases. So for most of the assignments, they're predominantly written, but you can, in some cases, use PowerPoint with video in an assignment. However, the first assignment must be written, and it is the only assignment that I have that is a group assignment. This group assignment is what's called a user study, or in writing, it is often referred to as a needs assessment. And the groups for the first assignment self-form. They self-form from the personal introductions. One of my first pages is an introduction page. And then I also have a needs assessment group discussion page. So within the first week or so of the class, post your personal introduction. You can post whatever you feel comfortable in posting. You can include a picture. It helps myself and others learn about the people with the introductions. And also with the introductions, you can begin to develop who you want in the group assignment. I have put together many group pages. They're under the people section, and so basically a group can say we want to use group page 1, group page 2. I max out at 6. I want to see each group to be at least 3 and no more than 6. I limit to 6, but I would like to see at least 3 in each group. So the first person that develops a group can say, I want to use group 1, and if you want to join my group, join group 1. These groups are based on generally the type of library that you're going to study. You'll study a school library, you study a public library, you'll study an academic library, whatever one the group decides they want to study. So it should be an actual library in existence. In other words, like I grew up in Kalamazoo, so we'll say Kalamazoo Public Library. You would actually select Kalamazoo Public Library. As an example. But whatever the library you choose, it should be an actual library. And so some people will say, we want to work on a public library, we want to work on a youth collection in a public library. Whatever you choose to do, you develop the group based on it on a personal interest. So once the groups form, and they should form within the first week or two, I expect everybody by the second week to be in a group, or I will continue to press to make sure everybody's in a group. The assignment takes roughly a month, and the idea would be for individuals in the group to decide amongst themselves who is going to work on what particular aspect of study, so that when it's all together, you'll have a good idea of what you're interested in doing. And then when you post this needs assessment, which isn't the only group assessment, you will need to, 1, email it to me, and 2, every member of the group should post to the assignment page their copy. I will assign a grade to everybody in the group, the same grade. Say, in other words, every person in the group gets the exact same grade, and I will send comments to everybody in the group. So for that one, it's true. Now, there are also other additional assignments that we're talking about here, which are not group assignments. One is selected resource assignment with an attached spreadsheet. The goal here is to determine that you're interested in becoming a children's librarian, you're interested in academics, you're interested in public libraries, adult services, whatever it is that you choose to be interested in, you're going to look at resources that help you develop a good collection. Basically 7 resources on which you do an assessment of the resource, what nature of the resource, the pros and cons of the resource, and you're going to attach to that a spreadsheet of items that you would select based on that type of librarian. Say you decide to become a children's librarian, you're going to have selected resources that would relate to children's librarian, and the spreadsheet would be materials that would be purchased for a children's librarian. I will provide a dollar value for the spreadsheet. This is traditional in libraries, in that a collection development person will sit there and say, we need resources for, say children, and we're going to order materials, and you'll have a spreadsheet, which is a personal list of materials that can be shared with a technical services department. The other things, one is going to be to write a journal's development policy. Every library should have a journal collection development policy. And I will have you examine policies that exist in other libraries and write a policy using them. It's going to be an independent policy for an imaginary library, shall we say. Although if you're working in a library and you want to write a policy for that library, you could do that as well. But the point is to develop a collection development policy for a library using information that you get from other policies. The other one is a major research paper topic that is the final assignment. And when I talk about journals, there are going to be a couple journals during the course. The journals are a personal reflection of a topic that was covered that was found to be personally interesting. It is written in the journals are written in the first person. You don't have to do references unless you feel the need that you want to refer to something. But it's a personal reflection, and as a result, I grade it based on a personal reflection. I see it as essentially as if it was an office visit. Now, the research paper, on the other hand, is on a topic that is of personal interest. So as you go through this semester and you get ideas, we'll talk about selected resources, we'll talk about intellectual freedom, we'll talk about preservation of materials, different things that are covered. You can pick any topic for the research paper that you find interesting. Now, you can always feel free to contact me. Canvas email works both the best and the fastest for quick response because I get Canvas emails immediately. On the other hand, I check the school's email server, the campus email. I only check it once per day on a weekday. So from Monday to Friday, I'll check email, and probably once a day. Whereas if you send a message on Canvas email, I will get it immediately and respond to it immediately. I also have a virtual office page. It's probably not as fast as Canvas email, but it is checked daily. Basically, because I'm on Canvas 7 days a week, I can check the virtual office page as well. It is shared and viewed by the entire class. So if you have a question that you want to ask me that you are willing to share with other students, you can post on the virtual office page. Sometimes you may have a question that you feel that I need to answer, but you also feel that it might be beneficial for others. That's where you would use the virtual office page. If you use the Canvas email, it goes directly to me and no one else sees it. But if you use a virtual office page, which is actually very useful, I will check it every day, and as I say, it's viewed by the class. Now, to give you kind of a background of myself, I kind of briefly told you I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I got my degree back in the 80s. But worked in a library since the 70s, but I actually got my degree in the early 80s. I worked in academic institutions. I worked at University of Houston, and I worked at Michigan State University. My primary skill in academic libraries was as a chemistry librarian. I actually worked in a chemistry department as a librarian for chemistry. And then later, after working as a chemistry librarian for a good number of years, and in addition to working in a chemistry library, I also worked in main libraries as well in academics. But finally, after working in science for a while, I moved into public libraries, ending up as a director of a public library for basically what was referred to as a class 5 library. In my state, libraries are discerned from classes 1 through 6, 1 being small, 6 being large. And I was class 5. The library I worked at was a class 5. So it was a large library, but not as large as the largest library. And from that job, I retired as the director of the library. Um, and so as I said, I did collections the entire time I worked in libraries, but it wasn't until I became a director that I actually gave collection materials to other librarians. So always feel free to contact me. I am open for anyone to contact me through any email process, but Canvas email works the fastest. So thank you. I appreciate that. Have a good day.